All right, welcome back to From 8 Arbitration. I've got Mike Caref in a room full of mad son of a bitches, and I'm going to let Mike introduce the people that he's got in the room with him. They're all going to talk. I'm going to let him kind of clarify some things. I'm going to ask him some questions. I'm coming strictly as a city letter carrier. I'm not any way associated with the union while I'm talking to you. All right. And so I'm coming straight as a city letter carrier who's mad as fuck about what we just saw this weekend. So Mike, introduce who you got with you, and then we'll get rolling. All right, my brother.
All right, brother. We got to my right here,
Paul Boulanger.
Paul Boulanger, branch 44. Where's that out of?
That's out of New Hampshire, man.
I knew it was New Hampshire. What's that, Manchester?
Manchester and we're surrounded. We got a merged branch. Got about 28 stations out of there.
28 stations? Oh, wow. Didn't realize that. So, Corey, we're here at the Committee of Presidents meeting in Atlantic City. And that's a little gathering that it's just a kind of an informal thing that's done twice a year with different presidents or their designees from around the country, branch presidents or state presidents, you know. So this one's in Atlantic City. It just happens to be right after the terms of the tentative agreement were announced. So I thought it'd be a good idea to get together with a couple other of the branch presidents just to get some feedback. Hey, you know, what are your members saying? What may look good? What may look bad out of this tentative agreement? And then we can go into some of the details. And then if you have any questions, we can kind of go like that. So that sounds good. So this is Paul. That sounds good.
Yeah, yeah.
Tom Cser, I don't know if you can see. We're recording this as well, so we have audio and video, but on the podcast it'll just be audio.
Let's go, Chiefs.
Did they win?
He looks like my twin.
What did he say?
We could be twins.
Yeah, there you go. I just need to throw it out a little bit.
Same haircut. Tom's the president of branch 274. I'll let him.
Yeah,
you gonna name all your officers?
There you go. Oh, I'll be here all night. That'll be good for choreo like that. But no, we're from Eastern Pennsylvania, about an hour north of Philadelphia. So yeah, we're here to collaborate and see what we can come up with here tonight.
He was in the neighborhood, so he came on by. north of Philadelphia. Then we got a man who you know well.
The Hammer.
Mr. Grosskopf, introduce yourself.
Dave Grosskopf, President of Branch 3, Buffalo, Western New York.
Awesome. If you ever get
like Mike Caref's twin.
That's your man right there.
That's right. That's like he said, that's my brother from another mother right there.
So
I want you to, if you can, a lot of people have asked about the meeting and what happened in this meeting with the executive council. As a city letter carrier, Mike, and I'm coming straight up as a city letter carrier, all of this shit that he's trying to sell y'all on this tentative agreement. And I've looked over it. I've heard a lot of stuff about it. I think it's probably the shittiest tentative agreement we've ever had. Something that's lasted almost 600 days. He's talking to y'all about this, and I'm going to let you tell, if you can, I don't know what you can tell as far as this meeting. I want to know who in that meeting stood up for the city letter carrier and said, this shit right here is shit. And we're not going to take it in front of our members. Something else needs to be done. Who in that meeting stood up for the city letter carrier and said, brother, what you've been selling us for the last 6 hours, we're not taking that in front of anybody. That's a load of shit. You sold us the fuck out. So did that happen, or just you tell about the meeting? Whatever you can tell, just tell. If you can't tell anything, I understand that.
I'll tell you this, and maybe it's telling, but the meeting. So you know, the president is over the executive council, and he sets up the meeting. He has the agenda. He runs the meeting. He calls on people. He says we're going to talk about this next and that next, that kind of thing. And there was no at any time, which this would be my third time. Yeah, third time. And there was no vote or even group discussion about whether or not we thought that the members should ratify this contract, should approve it. So the only way you're gonna find out what your representative, be it your business agent or, you know, the national officers that represent the whole country, you're gonna have to ask them. And nobody was asked or commented. Basically, the purpose of the meeting was to educate us on the different provisions. So we went over everything in detail. We're allowed to ask questions. We got to look at the actual contract language, which process-wise, the way this is going to go is you have this tentative agreement that is, 17 pages. It's posted on the website. And we got the same tentative agreement, but the tentative agreement is just a summary, right? So the actual language will come out when everyone gets a ballot in the mail, which will have all of the details, including the actual language. If you have a memorandum or whatever, the actual language that's going to be contained in there. And then you'll have to make a decision. Only 2 ways to vote, yes or no. You're voting it up and you're voting it down. And to me, there's a lot of different provisions in there. We went over all of them, but you know, he lost me on page 1. And I said this from the beginning, you know, in the beginning, and Brother Grosskopf was with me. You could go back and read an article that he wrote, I think it was like March of 2023, something like that, for his branch's newsletter. And I was putting out stuff. I mean, there was a lot of things that need fixing in the contract that he never had any intention of trying to fix. Things like the number of full-time assignments that we have versus the number that we need, the transfer rules, getting some type of paid maternity leave like federal workers have, end to mandatory overtime. Some of those things that you would have to really get in there and fight about. As far as I know, he never really even brought them to the table. But this has been secret negotiations that have gone on for 20 months. The first 4 months, he was not present. Remember that? And then he came back, and the last 16 months, I guess that is, you know, he was present, but he shared no information as far as progress and things like that. And the fact of the matter is, there's some things that he told us, and I'm not just saying us on the executive council, but, you know, all of these guys go to regional rap sessions and different things like that. Committee of Presidents meetings, we've had probably like 3 or 4 of them, you know, since negotiations started. And there's things that he told us that are just not in this contract. They're just, yes, the uniform thing is horrible. The CCA, you know, he told us flat out, the only way we would agree to the CCA category continuing in a new contract is if CCAs were paid the exact same as the starting wage for a career letter carrier. And that didn't happen at all. I mean, nowhere close, not even anywhere close to that. There was just a lot of disappointments in this contract. So I don't know, you guys, is it mostly been negative as far as the reaction of the membership, or what has it generally been?
You know,
Because online it's you know, it's like if only the Lord would have blessed me with a third hand to give this another 3 thumbs down.
Hey,
It's on the garment
Yes,
today, there. That's
No, you
right.
guys
Hey.
can do this.
I was fixing to say, I need to see Paul's tattoo.
It says vote no right there on his arm.
That's commitment.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, Corey, from my point of view, members have come to me and said no before I ever give my opinion. I mean, it doesn't take a genius or a rocket science to figure out that we get sold out.
Yeah, so locally back in Eastern Pennsylvania, so we have a WhatsApp group between our entire branch. So we'll do surveys in there, and every survey came back, no. There are no yeses. We have a lot of communication through that. Over the weekend, I have over about 500, 600 messages in that single WhatsApp group from just the carriers, you know, either shooting screenshots with their comments of exactly what happened. Same thing as Paul. They made their decision before I even expressed how I thought, and all of it is no. So it's pretty simple.
Yeah, I mean, same thing in Buffalo, Corey. Saturday morning, I was presenting at a Buffalo Labor Notes first ever troublemaker school. They asked me to speak, so I was actually on the podium at 9:30 a.m. This was obviously released at 9 a.m. And I was telling Paul Boulanger this earlier. I'm standing up there going through my presentation and my phone's on vibrate next to me. And the thing's literally vibrating off of the podium.
It's an earthquake.
Right. So when I got done with my presentation, you know, I obviously thanked the people for having me there, and I stepped outside and I just started looking at all the comments on my phone. And like the other presidents, I hadn't even spoken on this. I hadn't, you know, said thumbs up, thumbs down, nothing, but all the comments that were coming in were, you know, disappointment, disbelief, you know, vote no, and, you know, there's a lot of other comments that came in. I just won't, you know, obviously repeat what they said.
You know, the letter from Tolino came out
Right.
first.
That came out.
And everybody's thinking this is a joke, that somebody's punking the city letter carrier, because management's they're putting it up on the boards, saying this came down from Tolino. People are I bet I got 1,000 copies of that son of a bitch. And people saying, is this real? I'm like, I pray to God it's not. So Renfro's on whatever, talking to people, and they sent him that, and he's like, you know, kind of laughing, well, that's, you know, that's just a part of it. They want him to see that's not all of it. That was all of it. I mean, that's pretty much the gist of it.
Well, the only thing that wasn't included was the new pay scale. And so the new pay scale it does something, but I don't see how anyone could call it sufficient. So it gets rid of, at the bottom end of the pay scale, steps AA, step A, and step B, and puts everyone in step C. That's in any of those steps. It puts them in step C within 180 days of ratification. So it's not like it's retroactive or it's going to happen now, or, you know, the ratification process, by the way, will push us at least into December. It could be even longer than that. And then you factor 6 months after that. So that raise is going to be in next summer. But when it happens, the people that are in step C at that time will not go up any steps. And this is what we kind of predicted. People that were kind of talking about, you know, there's a lot of speculation. Well, how's this thing going to come out? And we're thinking that everyone's going to move up 2 steps, you know, because you have to raise the lower pay, and they really didn't raise it enough. What's really a slap in the face is you have clerks, PTF clerks, coming in at $27.28. I think it's 54,300. And even with the upgrade all the way to step C, it's only like 53,000. It still comes up short of what APW clerks are already getting. And of course, they're going to negotiate a new contract and piggyback off of our contract. Now, we end up higher than they do, because they only go up to about 72,000 now. And once we get the COLAs and the 1.3s, and we get the $1,000 at the top step, because all of that will come after ratification within 180 days. When that happens, then we'll be about 81,000. So they're, you know, and they'll get a raise too, but they probably won't get as much as us. But it's just not that much of a difference. We're slightly ahead. And you look at the pay scale and you say, okay, would the clerks even accept this pay scale, right? And we were promised, this is another promise, we're going to be head and shoulders. We're going to separate ourselves from the clerk pay scale, because the clerk pay scale is like duty work, right? For us, they're not out there getting shot at. They're not out there dealing with the elements. They're not being harassed every single day about every single thing that they do. They don't have the strains and the stresses and the level of, you know, the level of work that we do. I mean, we're dead tired at the end of the day, you know? And that work has to be, you know, because of the inherent risks and the more intense labor and the fact that we deal with the elements, it has to have more value. And when you present us with a contract that's basically the same shit that the clerks have, you're like, what the hell is this? And then if you look at the comparability, you know, and the President Renfro was running around talking about how we were in a good position to get a much better contract. And this was last summer, and particularly the contract that the UPS drivers got, which, you know, puts them now right now at $93,000 a year at the top, you know, and we're at 81,000. And at the end of the contract, we go up to 84,000, but by then they'll be at 97,000, you know? So they're way ahead of us, and we're a little bit above the clerks at the top, but not at the bottom. And it takes UPS drivers start off over $35 an hour. I think it's 37. It's like an average, and it's hard to, you know, when I read their contract, I don't know if you guys have tried to read it, but it's hard to get through the numbers. And it's not like our union has provided us with any type of comparison, but I'm going to try to do some more research and get better numbers. But the UPS drivers, it's 4 years to the top, and they start off somewhere around like $37, $38 an hour, or I know it's above 35, and then they end up at $45 an hour. Whereas we're going to start off, you know, somewhere around $25 an hour, and then we're going to go up to like 40, maybe $41 an hour. But it takes, that was the other thing. So it does take 96 weeks off of the time frame. So the time frame to get to the top had went up to 13 years, 13.4, 13.3 years. And so this takes off, you know, 96 weeks off of that, 92 weeks, I'm sorry, off of that number, but you still have CCAs, which is the crazy part. And you could put language in there, for example, let's say you're going to have CCAs. You say, okay, once you convert to career status, then you're going to get credit for your CCA time, right? You're going to move up in the pay scale, compare, you know, based on the time that you spent as a CCA. Hell, you could go back and say anyone that had CCA time can go up in the pay scale for the time they spent in that non-career classification. You can negotiate any of that, but none of that is in here. And the CCA pay thing, man, that is an absolute disgrace for a city letter carrier. And we're talking about how hard we work. We're talking about the level of responsibility. We're talking about the risk and the hazards and you know, working through the pandemic and everything. For starting pay to be $20 an hour, how the hell is that going to solve our problems? And I'm talking about the people don't want the job, the retention problems, the staffing problems, the mandatory overtime problems because you don't have enough carriers. None of that is being solved because you still have this $20 an hour non-career job. You think people coming out of the military that have veterans preference are applying for that bullshit job? They're not. They're not. The fact that that is still in the contract to me is the number one killer. But it's a big slap in the face. The uniform thing, oh my God. So if you wanted, so the Postal Service requires us to be in uniform, right? Elm 933, you got to wear these uniform items. And they provide us with an allowance, so they could just provide us with the damn uniforms. Here's the uniforms you need, right? But they don't. They provide us with allowance. They're supposed to let us go get the uniforms that we need, except for we can't afford to buy the uniforms that we need. The cost of the uniforms has doubled since the last contract, 100% increase. And instead we get this bullshit language. Oh, we're going to be looking at a pilot program and try to figure something. What the hell have you been doing for the last 20 months? You haven't figured a pilot program yet? You haven't figured nothing out? So May of 2023, zero increase, zero. Okay, you can't go back in time. May of 2024, zero increase. And then May of 2025, you're thinking, okay, they're going to give us at least a couple $100 or something. $37 fucking dollars, man. Increase in uniform. That's embarrassing.
Here's the thing. You look at in any negotiation, there's concessions. What concession did we have? You look at the CCA. They should have abolished that position. So he kept that position. Obviously, they talked him into keeping that position. That was a concession for what? What did we get?
Yeah.
Can anybody look at this tentative agreement and say he kept the CCA position? They went backwards. They're making $20 an hour. What is that? A dollar raise? Something like that? I mean, what were they making? And so what was the concession there? What did we gain out of that? You're talking about.
We thought at the top step we would get, each step is worth about, in the table 2 chart, is worth like $2,000. So we thought we would get maybe a two-step increase, which would be $4,000 at the top step. And instead we got 1,000. So we got
Yeah.
like 25% of kind of what we expected there. So that wasn't the big gain.
That's just
You know?
step. That's just step P.
That's a step P. People that are in steps C through O
Zero.
got diddly squat. Well,
1.3.
they got 1.3 in the colas, which
Now,
it's not nothing, but we're getting that anyway. You know, that's just keeping up with the Joneses. And the fact of the matter, we have fell so far behind, you know, you can't just keep up. But, you know, TE pay and starting pay in November of 2011, when that contract expired, which was a long time ago, was $22.15. And the fact that at the end of this contract, when it's over in November of 2026, we still won't even be back to that $22.15 number, which in today's money is over $30 an hour. The fact that we're not even back there is horrible. It's a horrible contract. And the fact that it took so long, we're not getting that time back. The people that quit the job, they're gone. They're not even going to get no back pay probably. You know, they're not going to be owed any money. They're gone. All of the issues we've been having, the service problems, the staffing issues, the whatever, none of that has been fixed. And we lost all of this time. And here's one more thing that to me is a slap in our face. The Postal Service, there's no time frame for them to give us our damn back pay. They've been holding our money now for a year and a half. We go through this ratification process, which takes another couple of months. If we ratify the contract, which I don't recommend, but if we did, Post Office would probably take another 6 months or so before they give us our back pay, which means they're holding on to our money for 2 damn years with no interest on the back pay on our money. That's our money they've been holding on to. So that to me is another slap in the face. Are there anything that stood out for you guys that were like real head scratchers or things that you know?
Well, fixed office time.
Yeah, where did that come from?
that to me, I want each president to talk about this. Because here's the thing, Mike, and I say this, I've been saying this for a long time. We've been conditioned as the city letter carrier. The Postal Service has been conditioning us, and they've been conditioning our union. When you talk about Barner with the cease and desist, you talk about Renfro with the certifies and the DPS is not a grievance. The reason he's been saying that is he knew, that motherfucker knew that he was going to do this, concede that fucking fixed office time. That was one of our only saving graces. He didn't make them fight a fucking second for that and did away with our fixed office time. How long have I been bitching about that on these episodes about this fixed office time? That was one of the only things we had going for us with this metric of an hour office time is, hey, we've got 33 minutes of fixed office time, 43 with a break. And so how are they expecting us to get out of the office, you know, case our mail in 15 minutes? This motherfucker sided with them and did away with our fixed office time down to what, 20 minutes?
Oh, yeah.
This motherfucker.
Well, it's down to, it's so weird. So what it says is that if the parties enter into a joint process, right? So, I mean, logically, if you're going to enter into a joint process or a memorandum or an agreement, at that time, you can put what you agree to in the memorandum at that time, right? Like, why would you lock yourself in now to some language in some potential future memorandum or process that doesn't even exist? Or you're like, or does it? You know, like what the hell is going on here? Because it's really weird that would be in there. Or you say maybe that's something, because Cellino put it in his letter, right? So the Postal Service was selling that as, hey, look what we got out of the contract. We're going to be able to get the carriers out earlier. But of course, all it says is that here's the minimum amount, but if you need more, then you'll get what you need. But the minimum is no longer there. The minimum that we had before is no longer going to be there if we negotiate a joint process. So,
but why would he even engage that? Why would he even entertain?
It's got to be a concession. You got to consider that to be a concession, right? There's no,
what do we get?
Exactly. There's no positive in that.
We're gonna get more harassment on the workroom floor.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
the
that's
amount
it.
of harassment we get on the workroom floor, it's gonna just snowball and snowball and snowball. it's gonna be 10 times worse.
I guarantee
Well-
you, even before this is ratified, they're gonna be drilling this on the workroom floor tomorrow. I guarantee it.
Right.
Sure, I would. If I'm management, I am. They've been trying to get that fucking hour office time, this metric, for however long, year and a half now. This bitch hadn't said nothing about it from the national level. The reason being is he's part of it. Doing away with our 33 minutes of fixed office time. What's this motherfucker's problem, man?
And the ironic thing is, man, as letter carriers, you know that, you see this with the rural carriers all the time, and it's a big pet peeve of mine. So the rural carriers, they get paid the same thing no matter what. So when the rural carrier is setting up their mail, they're doing it in the most efficient manner. Why? Because as soon as they get off work, they go home, they get paid the same amount, right? And you
Yeah.
always see them spend more time in the office setting up their mail because it's more efficient. It's more efficient, and they're able to do that shit indoors where there's a roof, on days when it's raining or whatever, outdoors. And so they can do that because it's more efficient, but the Postal Service gets to harass us and make us go out on the street and do everything out there, in the elements and where the crazies are at. And the more time you spend on the street, the more dangerous it is. That's just a fact of the thing. So why would our union try to negotiate terms that are going to force us to be in the office less when it's to our advantage to be in the office more, where we can do some of those things or put some of that mail in order? The Spurs is a big thing now. How do you handle those things? If you give us a little bit of office time and some equipment, maybe we can put them things in order so we can flow better out on the street, and it's not all just, strewn about the back of the vehicle. But none of that stuff, but we give the postal managers an extra whip, to bother us with. What do you guys think about the Article 8 changes?
Hate it.
Hate it?
Hate it. So my opinion, Mike, is this. So the 1260, why are people going over 1260? It's because of staffing, right?
Right.
It's 'cause
Short
of
staff.
staffing. So if we're allowing carriers to go over 12 and 60, we're allowing management to say there is no staffing problem. So that takes away our bargaining chip.
Right.
How are we gonna bargain for higher wages and benefits if the post office says we got enough people? We're getting the mail delivered.
Right. And our goal has always been to add more full-time assignments, more career jobs. And, people are working, 100 hours a week.
Yeah. I mean, how are we gonna argue?
That's
Well,
not
you-
real.
If we're
You've
conceding,
got-
how are we gonna argue safety?
But a lot of branches, man. So now with the new rule, right? If the contract is ratified, that's a huge if. But if the contract is ratified, then anytime you get to that 12 and 60 work hour limit. Now it doesn't address 85F, and it's like, did we lose 85F? Because there's language in 85F about you can't require a non-ODL carrier to work beyond these hours, which is basically like 10 hours in a day or anything that puts you in the penalty overtime. But it says now in the tentative agreement, if you want to volunteer to go beyond 12 in a day or 60 in a week, you can volunteer. And if you don't volunteer, then you can just go home and they can't discipline you. And the problem for a lot of branches is going to be now if a carrier works over that amount, it's not a violation no more because they did so
Yeah.
voluntarily.
That's the
Now we
thing.
did so voluntarily, it's not a violation. All those remedies that you have built in, they're not going to be applicable anymore.
Well, and here's another thing. And this is this motherfucker's biggest problem, is that he's not been on this floor long enough to understand what he does. When he puts things into motion like that, he doesn't understand dishonesty of the motherfuckers we work with on the workroom floor in management. To say they volunteered. I didn't volunteer. Oh yeah, you volunteered. Yeah, you volunteered. And my supervisor over here, my 204B over here, heard you volunteer, and you just brought all this mail back, and you volunteered. And
Yeah,
now
'cause
you
there's
put
no
us
lift.
in a
There's no
and now
lift.
you put us in a position. Now you're putting us in a position of delaying all this mail after you sat there and volunteered to take these 2 full routes. This dumb motherfucker doesn't get it. That who we deal with on a daily basis are the most dishonest motherfuckers on the planet, and that's postal management. Let me ask you this. All of these concessions that we have, we didn't gain a fucking thing. What did we get on noncompliance?
Nothing.
About a remedy for noncompliance, about how we're going to deal with one of the,
Or
the-
even,
probably-
even language that makes it clear that they're required to abide by the terms of the contract. Or
We
the
talk
terms of
about
agreement
this-
settlement. We don't even
we
have that
talked
language.
about the, yeah, I remember at the Grosskopf, you remember at the COP that we went to. One of the biggest, the number one thing that people, even you got up there and everybody was saying, what are we doing about this non-compliance? Where in the fuck is that?
Yeah, that was Jacksonville. That was the last one there when we
Yeah.
were in Florida. And because the presidents, we were having troubles, getting back pay for a bunch of different things. And that was the point we were making is, listen, something's got to be put in place here, because you get a grievance settlement saying, okay, the carrier is owed back pay. And then management doesn't process it, and then you got to file a grievance on that grievance. And then that's taking a year and a half for that carrier to get the back pay. So again, you're looking at anywhere, a year to two delay for that carrier to see that money back. And that's just obviously inherently unfair to the carrier.
We got
What do
nothing in
on that?
Article 15. We got nothing. So nothing to address the backlog of grievances at the DRT or the backlog, pending arbitration. And we got nothing on contract compliance. We didn't even get anything on procedure other than a test of an electronic process. A test is not a game. If the parties want to do a test, they go do it tomorrow. Like, nobody's stopping you from doing a test if both parties agree to it. To put that in a contract and say, we got that is nothing. You didn't get nothing out of that.
It's like here you have the Postal Service knowing that they're dealing with a rookie. That's what this contract is like. They're sold this motherfucker on everything. Now look, we'll give you this new grievance procedure. How we're going to do it is through a computer. And this motherfucker probably says, are y'all serious? I can see him thinking that he's really accomplished something. This is a rookie motherfucker that just came out with a rookie ass TA. It's almost like, and this is what I was telling everybody yesterday, it's almost like the very first day of negotiations when he finally showed up. They gave him a piece of paper of everything that they wanted, and 517 days later, he bought it. That's almost what it looks like, is that we accepted the very first thing that management offered us.
Everyone is saying, when we look at this agreement, we're like, was this their first offer?
It has to be.
Like, did we get this thing 500 days ago because you were holding out
What
for
were they
that?
offering? Yeah.
What about toxic? Shit.
What about toxic working environment? What kind of games did we have on that?
J-Whip, and the one advantage to this new J-Whip, because we've had like 6 of these things, which are normally useless, but the one advantage to this one, the way it's written, and we'll have to see the exact language, but the language that I think is in there that we saw, like I said, the contract language was put up on the screen for us to see at the executive council meeting yesterday, but it's in there that we could agree, if we have a hostile environment, we can agree to jointly, hey, we're going to send Paul in there to, find out what's going on and get some resolution. Or we can tell the Postal Service, you know what? It's fine. We got our grievance process. So, and it gets expedited in the grievance process. So to me, that's an advantage. It puts back in the, talk about some pluses. It puts back in language that requires them to have district safety teams, which, the Postal Service has been really shying away from as far as putting any commitment into that. So that would be in the contract. So I think that's a positive. That'll be in there. There's a couple other things that I think you would consider to be positives, but overall, and like I say, if you have a joint agreement on doing something, they're going to change the language to say that every installation, or maybe of a certain size, is going to have labor management meetings at least twice a year. Okay, that's good. But of course, the parties can agree to that anyway. You know what I mean? Some of these things that you could agree to anyway are not really gains. They're just things that make it more effective, the labor management process or the collective process within the post office. To me, they're not gains. They got rid of the 10-hour list. Did you catch that?
Yeah, somebody was talking about that
10-hour list
earlier.
is gone, according, if we ratify the contract.
The 10-hour preference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why? What did we get out of that? we crossed out a bunch of languages, all these memorandums. Article 8's been negotiated for so many years, since the 80s and all that. So now we're crossing out all this stuff. Oh, this isn't applicable. This isn't applicable. I'll tell you one thing that bothered me. The 10-hour list is not a big deal to, I would say, a lot of people. But to the people that want to be on the 10-hour list, you took that away from them. So, like you said, we're not getting nothing out of it. Why are we taking that away from one of our members that may want to be on the 10-hour list? But the new employee retention program, which is generally a good idea, is going to be in effect in every installation if we ratify this contract. One of the problems with that is that there's work hour limits for the brand new employee that people that are full-time regulars cannot get. So one of the goals of the Building Fighting NALC, they said we got to have a $30 an hour starting pay, and we gotta end mandatory overtime. And instead of ending mandatory overtime for full-time regulars, you make it so the auxiliary workforce, if they're new, is restricted to certain work hours, and then they can force someone who's has earned the right to be a full-time regular, that might have to go home, they might have to go, pick up their kid from daycare or whatever. They've earned that right, and we have that Article 8.1 language that says your work week shall be 8 hours a day times 5, and now you can be mandated to work, and a brand new employee would be sent home after 8 hours or 10 or whatever that work hour limit built in. To me, that doesn't work. That doesn't work.
What's funny is seeing on social media all these business agents and the RAAs trying to sell this crap, load of shit to the members.
Yeah, not in Region 3. No, sorry.
No, hey,
dude, I have talked to a lot of people. Like you say, business agents or people in the regional offices that are just like, this is a crap contract. And I'm not saying that to everybody, but
you got a lot of them out there on social media trying to sell this shit to the members about how this is a great thing. How, if we go to arbitration,
well,
why in the fuck are we so scared of arbitration?
That, Corey, is where, in my opinion, they're really trying to scare people. So there's two things that are, there's going to be a campaign. Obviously, the president wants us to approve his contract, right? And we should give it a fair shake. There's going to be rap sessions. There's starting on 1 week from today, there'll be a rap session in Houston. And then the Tuesday following that, which is the 29th of October, there'll be a rap session in San Francisco. And then on Halloween, there's one in Minneapolis. And then November the 2nd, there's one in Washington, D.C. And that's the president, trying to sell this thing. Everyone in the executive council will be there, which is weird. Why are we spending money? I don't have, look, and this is the truth. The executive council has nothing to do with this contract. We were not.
Yeah.
The last thing that any of us ever did, I would say, except for maybe 1 or 2 people on the council, and there's 28 of us, was the last thing we did was submit proposals in March of 2023. And now we haven't heard nothing since then. We don't really know. We don't even know if President Renfro brought forth those proposals. We don't know if the Postal Service had counter proposals. We just don't know. They just, they disappeared in thin air. So, but you got this process, and it should be a fair process, but well, you should hear them out because, this is your vote on whether you want to ratify this contract or not. But you're going to hear 2 things. And one of them is that the post office finances are really bad. And the problem with that argument is that who gives a shit? First of all, the post office finances are bad because they've made them bad, right? They've messed up the situation. They're way over bloated with supervisors. They waste money on so many things and so many positions. They're killing themselves in these grievance payouts. They're paying out all type of overtime and penalty overtime. And it's just a lot of waste. Their hiring process doesn't work. So they got to constantly spend money hiring new people and going through all of that. So the post office is doing this to themselves. And quite frankly, when our brothers and sisters went out on strike in 1970 and they changed the law, they wrote that law. And I went back and reviewed that thing the other day because I wanted to make sure. But I've heard this before. And I went back and read every single word in that thing. It don't say nothing about the post office finances. It says that pay will be a career employment, and the pay will be set comparable to the pay and benefits in the private sector. And that's it. So basically, if we deserve more money, you have to pay us more money and you have to cut something else out. That's the way the shit goes, right? Pay us and get rid of some of these supervisors or whatever you have to do. We're not going to put our fairness and what we deserve and what we've earned to the back burner so that the post office can hire more supervisors and waste more money. That's
Here's the
ludicrous.
thing.
That should
Here's
not
the
come up
thing.
at all in an arbitration hearing.
The city letter carrier paid for the postal service's mismanagement.
Yes.
That's exactly what happened in this TA.
Exactly.
The city letter carrier,
if we vote for this contract, we're allowing that to happen. We're allowing them to denigrate our job and our craft and our future. Tom had put something up on one of the Facebook posts maybe about a week ago. He got pissed off and someone was saying, hey, we're just mailmen, you know, and what did you tell him?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people. I come from a very positive household. I was raised, both my parents worked very, very hard for what they have. And I was in that environment. And what they instilled in me was that it doesn't have to be that way. You have control to go out and do what you're gonna do. So, you know, people are so negative on these posts. Oh, we can't do this. We can't do this. We're never going to be able to do this. Well, if you get your mind right and you get enough people and enough support, you can do whatever the hell you want. And it's that simple. People got to wake up and see what's going on. I got a lot of smart people back home. They're ready to get involved. They're ready to go. Whatever we have to do, they're ready to go. I know I got their back and they got my back. And that's what it's all about. Stay positive. If you want something, go get it.
The professional letter carrier is an esteemed member of the community, and that's why that language is written in the way it's written. And you look at anybody else, you look at people that work for like municipalities in the major cities, the bus drivers or whatever, even the people that sweep the streets or whatever. You look at any other trade, the carpenters, the electricians, the whatever. You look at the UPS drivers. You look at any solid career job out there, they're all making more than us. All of them, you know? And so if we were to go to arbitration, because that's the other thing they're going to try to scare us, is that if you go to arbitration, they're going to take everything away from us. And I think that's bullshit. I think this contract is the absolute, you know, this is the floor. This is the least that we'll be able to get out of an arbitrator. Let me talk about, I wrote down, and there may be other things, but I wrote down 4 things that I think we can get out of arbitration. I don't think we're going to do any worse. But if there's certain provisions that you don't like in this tentative agreement, if you vote no, they don't go into effect. So that's a positive right there. That's a reason to vote no, you know, that in and of itself. But if you're looking at the economic stuff, I think we can do better with the uniform program. I think that the Postal Service has an obligation to say, okay, here's what we're requiring you to wear. And here's how much this costs. We do a cost analysis and we tell the Postal Service through a neutral arbitrator, hey, you got to give us this amount, whatever that amount is. Is it $800 a year? Is it $1,000 a year? Is it $1,200 a year? And once we get that, I guarantee you they're going to start working on that damn pilot program. The only reason they're not working on the pilot program now is because we're the ones paying the extra cost for the uniforms, not them. You make them pay the actual cost for the uniforms, they pay it, then you change that dynamic. I think we can win that in front of an arbitrator because they're requiring us to be in uniform. If they're going to require something, they got to pay for that. That's one thing we can win. I think the CCA thing, we can do a lot with that. So we're going to argue, go to arbitration, that there shouldn't be any CCAs. And people will say, well, there's always been a non-career element in the Postal Service. Well, the Postal Reorganization Act of 1970 clearly specifies it's a career job. So that's something in our favor. The non-career classification has always been a temporary employee. It was a casual, it was Christmas help, it was summertime. Then you had transitional employees. You had transitional employees because the post office was automating. And they're saying, we don't need to hire all these city letter carriers to case mail because when automation comes in, which is going to be, 5 to 10 year rollout, then we're going to need less carriers. So we're going to hire these transitional employees. And then when we don't need them, we don't have to lay off a career employee. We just get rid of the transitional employees. And they were capped at 3.5% of the workforce. So were the casuals. Now you have this non-career workforce that is just a part of the job, you know? And the irony of the thing is, we argue, supposedly, in Congress that our people should get credit for all of their time and toward retirement. And then we negotiate a contract that specifically does not give them, you know, time toward retirement. That's bullshit. So we could take that argument in front of an arbitrator. We'll get something out of that. I think that at the very least, we would get either one of two things, either a reduction in time that you spend as a CCA from 2 years to 1 year, or you can get where the CCA starting pay, just like the T's used to have, is the same as the starting pay for, you know, the starting pay for PTFs, the career PTFs, which is going to be about, once all the stuff gets, you know, the increases, it'll be like $26 an hour, which $20 an hour versus $26 an hour. And that's the other problem with this damn thing. You still got the all career model, which is weird, right? So in some places, do you guys got that in your offices?
We do.
Yeah, some of them. So I go on these orientations all the time, and you got PTFs and CCAs, depending on what office they got hired in. And it's like, okay, so now the PTFs, it's even going to be worse. Right now, it's 2213 versus 1933. It's going to be 26 versus 20. You're going to make $26 an hour career job. You over here, that's $20 an hour. No, you know, shitty benefits, no retirement. You know, that doesn't work. We're a union that has a national contract, and we've said two things. Well, one thing, but it applies in two ways. We've said that a letter carrier is a letter carrier is a letter carrier. How the hell do we negotiate a contract where some places they start off as career employees and make this, and other places they're not? We should require the same thing everywhere. And the other thing is, when we say a letter carrier is a letter carrier is a letter carrier, you better negotiate a pay rate that the carriers in Boston and the carriers in San Francisco and the carriers in Los Angeles can afford to live off of, right? Because you only have one contract and it's a national contract. That means it better be high enough so that letter carriers everywhere can live off of. And this contract, it just doesn't do it. So I think we can make some improvements, definitely with the uniforms, definitely with the CCA position. And then I think we can make a good argument that two-step increase, that thing where everyone goes from A up to C, that two-step should apply to everyone. So if you're at C, you go to E. If you're at E, you go to G or whatever. And if you're at the top, you should get that two-step increase, which, like I said, it still doesn't put us where UPS drivers are at. And by the way, UPS drivers get 100% of their health insurance paid. So you got to factor that in too. If you say it's comparable, I don't think it is. You know, I think if you run the numbers, you're going to find that it's not comparable, and that a UPS driver over the life of their contract with their pay and their benefits make a hell of a lot more than we do. And our contract is really comparable to the damn clerks that are working light duty that supposedly in 1999, well, we separated ourselves. You know, the great things we've accomplished was 1970 when we went on a strike, 1999 when we went up a level, and then now we're shitting all over that, and we're agreeing to these lousy contracts that don't dignify city letter carrier. So I think we can fight on those four things. I don't think we'll do any worse, and maybe there's other things that we'll fight over, but I don't see how we get a worse contract by going to arbitration. That fear mongering, or that if you guys go to arbitration, they're gonna take away the COLA. Look, the reason why we have the COLA is because we got that 1.3 bullshit. If we didn't have the COLA, they wouldn't give us 1.3. They'd give us 3%, 4% raise without the COLA, whatever. You know, I like the COLA. I love it. You know, but the COLA is just a replacement for wages. So if they gave us the wages instead of the COLA, we're really losing. You know, it's fear mongering. It's straight up fear mongering.
They already started. They already started that. These business agents, you got about 3 or 4 straight bitches that have started this shit. You know, trying to sell.
We should vote for this thing.
Huh?
They're saying we should vote for this thing.
Oh yeah. You got a couple. Of course, they're straight up Renfro's ass, and so they're going to do whatever he tells them to do because they're his bitches. And so, and their RAAs are no different. They're straight bitches too. And trying to sell this shit to the city letter carrier, knowing that the city letter carrier is getting fucked over, knowing they sat in that same fucking meeting with this dumb motherfucker talking about this TA, and then they're gonna come sell us the shit that they wouldn't even buy in that meeting. And so the only one making a living wage right now is postal management. That's the only ones making a living wage. The city letter carrier,
And they don't do any damn work.
they
any
don't do a
damn work,
fucking
man.
thing. They don't do shit but lie and steal and cheat. That's all them
And
motherfuckers
harass
do.
them. Don't forget about that.
Yeah.
The level
And
of
so-
harassment is just, it's insane nowadays. Every single
Yeah.
minute of every single day, and it's like, and you're hearing it from people that are not doing shit all day. It's so disrespectful. The profession
that's-
has gone down.
I'm gonna get back to that. We have made all these concessions, and not just in this contract. We've made concessions. This dumbass we have as president talking about stationary events. He's made a concession on that. He's not going to challenge that as far as them watching us when you talk about 134 of the M39 handbook. He didn't come out strong against that. Matter of fact,
Where's that
I missed-
memorandum? Where's that
Yeah.
memorandum, you know? That says
Yeah.
if you want to accuse the carrier of doing something, you got to go out and observe what they're doing.
Why couldn't we get that?
Right, exactly.
Why couldn't we get that? You know, because he has conceded every fucking thing. It's all, and I guarantee you this will happen. When this motherfucker gets fired, when he loses, within a week he'll be in postal management. I guarantee you that. That motherfucker will be in management within a week of getting his ass removed.
So funny you should talk about him getting removed. So you and I and thousands of other carriers did bring the brother up on charges, and the charge is negligence. And the negligence is, and when we first put forth the charges, people were saying, well, you know, he's telling us he's going to get a good contract. Maybe he's been working diligently on behalf of the membership over the past 19, 20 months. Let's wait to see what it looks like. Well, we've seen it now. And he put out a press release that said, after working tirelessly for the last 20 months, well, we got charges and we're going to get this investigator and we're going to find out how tirelessly you've been working. You know,
Hey, let me tell you this. There's nothing more important right now than that charge you filed on that motherfucker about him not being able to negotiate another contract for us.
Yep.
If there's ever a charge that needs to stick on that motherfucker, it's that he should never be allowed to negotiate anything for us again.
you know how
As
many
bad as
people,
this shit
you
is,
know how many charging people in the charging party there are now? Take a guess.
I knew there were 2,000. How many now?
There's like 3,300 now.
Tell people where they
And
can
there'll
go
probably
sign
be
up.
more. There'll probably be more.
I tell you what, they're going to triple that number. Tell people how they can get on there and sign up for that. It'll triple.
Yeah, we'll
This
post
motherfucker
the link. All you got to do is fill out the form. So you look at the charges, you check a box that says, yeah, I want to be part of the charges. I read them. I know what they say. And then you put your name in and all your contact information, and then you're part of the charges. And so I already gave Paul Barner a copy. There was about 2,000 people. This was as of last week. I think we cut it off on that Tuesday or something last week, and it was 2,000 people. But once we get you know, a couple thousand more or whatever, we got to format all those names and stuff. You know, and this is, man, this is a straight grassroots effort. You know I saw you guys' name on there, but it's not a lot of like branch presidents and officers. So there's a part in there where it says, you know, what is your union position? City letter carrier, dues paying member. You know, the overwhelming response is like, hey, I'm just a member of the union that's getting screwed here. And I know who's screwing me. But we're going to find out. I mean, the big problem with this whole process is we've been sitting here, you know, twiddling our thumbs, waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting to get some justice, to get the proper raise or whatever. And what the charges says is like, look, you have to be working on our behalf diligently. And it doesn't look like you are. And if you're not working on our behalf tirelessly, then that's negligence. That's negligence as our president. And we would have the ability, at least no later than the convention in 2026, to make sure that you don't negotiate the next round of bargaining, which, if you see the terms of this tentative agreement, it's going to expire in November of 2026, which means in August of 2026, you know, President Renfro will still be in office, and he'll begin negotiating a new contract for us. And I think that no member of the union wants him to negotiate after this fiasco with this round of collective bargaining. We do not want him negotiating the next round.
You know who's got the hardest job? Those three guys sitting in the room with you. They got the hardest fucking job because now they got to go back to their members and face this shit. You know, you got people nationwide talking about we're getting out of the union. I've never seen the amount of people talking about we're getting out of the union as I do right now. We had CCAs walking off the job yesterday when they saw that shit, saying, why in the fuck am I here? You gave them up to $20. You couldn't even pay them what fast food workers are making. That's how little this motherfucker did for them. If I'm CCAs, I'm starting my own grassroots effort. As a CCA, I'm going to get all the CCAs together and say, hey, vote this motherfucker out. If all of them voted, this motherfucker would be gone. And so, you know,
But I think we got to vote no. As a union, you know, we have to have a standard. And before the details came out, I think everyone was like, all right, let's see what it looks like. Let's look at the pros and the cons. But not to say that there's not any pros in this thing, but this is a disrespectful contract. If we were to accept this contract, we're downgrading ourselves as letter carriers. And it just for that reason alone, we should vote this thing down. But of course, I think the silver lining is if we do go to arbitration, I think we can do a little bit better. And whether we do a little bit better or we get the same shit at arbitration, I think we got to put up a fight. And I do appreciate, I know you got Tyler Vassar coming on later, the Building a Fighting NALC group. Appreciate what they're doing and what they're going to do. And I told him, I talked to him earlier today. I said, brother, whatever help you need, because they're going to start making plans and, you know, hey, I don't know what, you know, all the details are going to be, but, you know, if you want to win something, you gotta get down to the details and, you know, who's going to do what. And, you know, you get your list together, you get your campaign together. So they're going to have a vote no campaign. They're not the only ones, man. I see stuff popping up, you know, just people I've never heard of, you know, hey, I'm starting a vote no page. Join me.
I know my Discord, they're starting one, from Made Arbitration.
Do you have to get a tattoo like my brother Paul here? Is that required? Is that, you know?
Well, that will get you on the front row of the picture.
How much
You won't be in
I see that picture right now.
Hey, that $37 you get for the uniform.
Yeah.
You could get him a cutoff shirt so he could see it.
We'll need that.
Right, one sleeve ripped
I was
off.
gonna get him
There
one.
you go.
I was gonna get him one sock for that, but you know, maybe the cutoff sleeve.
Hey, you can
$37.
tell. You can tell he'd been working out before he got that tattoo, so he could show it off.
What needs to happen, Corey, is those 4 rap sessions, like Mike's saying, is that all the rank and file movements need to band together with that vote no, you know, plan, right? What else needs to happen is those 4 rap sessions, the rank and file's got to be picketing at those rap sessions to let this guy know, hey, listen, we're not kidding here. We do not want this to happen. And a show of force is going to make that happen because you know what's happening inside that room. The same thing that happened on that convention floor. He's going to use that executive council to his, you know, best ability to try to sell, you know, what he wants to sell to them. And like you mentioned, the fear mongering, that's all that is. What's the difference to the Postal Service of 1.3% as opposed to, let's throw a number out there, 10%, based on the amount of money that they got coming in on a daily basis? It's negligible over the life of that contract. So there's absolutely no reason, you know, that pay package should be that small. It's a slap in the face. It doesn't keep up with inflation, and it doesn't reward letter carriers for what they did, like we discussed during that pandemic, right? Everybody got paid for the pandemic. That's all letter carriers are asking for.
Where's our hazard pay?
Treated equally as other workers.
Yeah, I would want to get into arbitration just to get in their books.
Yeah.
Just to get in them motherfuckers' books. I want to go to arbitration because you said you made 71 billion and we made a 6 billion net loss. Let's get in those books and see what exactly are y'all doing. And I guarantee you, like you said earlier, the fat in this federal government job at the management position the fat alone, you could carve about 60% of that out. The waste that they do, of course, you got the S&DCs building those, that's gonna go against your laws. You got new vehicle fleet, go against your laws. You got, postal management. Anytime you make any kind of surplus, they're gonna add new managerial jobs to soak some of that up. We got 2 MCSOs in Nashville when the job requires 1. That's a position. You got too many, if the times are changing as far as the workroom floor, you're talking about doing away with a fixed office time. Why do I need 4 managers on my workroom floor now? Why do I need 3 supervisors and a station manager? What are they doing to evaluate their own shit before they come in here and fucked us over? This motherfucker didn't hold them to any kind of standard. He didn't say anything to them about what the fuck are y'all doing? Why are you going to shit on my people? What in the fuck are y'all doing? You've made 71 billion. Where's that at?
One thing they could all be doing, these damn useless supervisors, go get us our damn back pay. Go detail them to Egan and let them work on the back pay. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
how do we accept that? Oh, it just takes that long. And there's not going to be any interest. There's not going to be, why do we accept that? We got to at least put up a fight and take that argument to a neutral arbitrator and say, hey, the Postal Service has a responsibility here. If they're going to delay our back pay, for example, then they have to pay for that. And then maybe they set up different processes so they don't delay our back pay because they got to pay for it, right? But there's not going to be any change as long as you let them get away with all this stuff.
What y'all think about 16.7?
I mean, it's good that the carriers are gonna get.
I thought it was
use their own
nothing,
leave,
but
I'm not a big.
That's
fan.
gonna be a back pay issue then. You use your AL and then you gotta try to
Yeah.
get back.
I think we'll be able to win the back pay in most cases. Just like now we win back pay and it's still offset, if you got another job or whatever. But if you're on annual leave, then you can argue that, restore my annual leave and it'll just be paid time off work, like work hours. So I don't know. I didn't think it was bad, but
What? So you got a carrier. He gets
it's not gonna give me the
he
vote
gets-
for the thing.
he gets put out on EP, right? And they say now he can take annual leave to offset being put off without pay. And so a lot of these, at some point, what's the immediacy? What's the emergency? I mean, what's the emergency on the next day? If I've got my seatbelt off, what's the emergency tomorrow? But you'll keep me off for 2 weeks, 3 weeks if you don't like me, and I'm using my annual leave, but based off of something that management's just being an asshole to me. And then it comes up my choice vacation period. I ain't got no fucking leave because I had to use it to survive, to feed my family because I got some bitch ass manager.
Don't forget it took you 6 to 8 months to get your grievance resolved. And then it took them another 3 months to do your back pay. And by that time, like you said, the vacation board passed. And what we really need is better language in the JCAM under 16.7. The language in the JCAM is not very good.
That should have been handled.
Yeah.
Because you have too many people being put on emergency placement for bullshit because you got some over anxious bitch ass supervisor manager running around there on the street saying, hey, look at there. That person just drove up with no seatbelt on. Put him off the clock. There needs to be something in fucking 16.7 to explain what in the fuck is an emergency.
Right.
And when does that emergency end? Because they always say, we'll let you know what we're going to do with you after our investigation. What's the emergency?
Well, you cannot suspend an employee under the terms of our contract pending further investigation. You can put them on admin leave pending further investigation. But you can never suspend a letter carrier or probably any employee that's in the bargaining unit pending further investigation. Because you have to see the determination. You can't discipline before making a determination.
You want to see the abuse of 16.7 end? Do that. Say the initial finding is that this is an emergency situation. Either I was having some adverse effect to medication, which makes no sense why I would lose pay for that. But, or I was caught without a seatbelt, some stupid ass shit like that will last no longer than 2 business days, and then they will be put on administrative leave until resolution or until the investigation is concluded. These motherfuckers will finish that investigation then.
The JCAM language should say that because we already won that through the Mittenthal Award in 1990. All you got to do is apply the language in the Mittenthal Award and put it in the JCAM and clarify that. We already won it, but it
Yeah.
doesn't say that. So everyone, misinterprets what their right, well, especially management misinterprets their rights under 16.7. And it's not, that's not the reality. The JCAM language is supposed to clarify and educate. And that's just one of many examples where it doesn't. But, we didn't really get a lot of the things that really do need improvement in the contract or in the JCAM. So I don't put a whole lot of stock into all of the non-pay stuff. To me, it's like, whatever, none of that is worth me voting for or really voting against. There's a lot more things that are more important that I would like to see, but we're going to have to get a new president for that. This president is not going to bargain and fight for those things. But as far as the pay issues, we can do better. We deserve better. Let's vote this contract down. Let's force them to go to arbitration, and then let's go from there. And we'll take up the next fight after that.
I'm with, hey, any of y'all back there want to say something before we get off of here? Do y'all want to call somebody a bitch or anything like that while we're on?
I told him no cussing. I told him the
Why didn't you
rules,
say
man.
that? Why didn't you say that to me? Hell, I've been.
Corey,
I didn't know.
Mike, and you didn't bring up really so much as prorated colas.
Oh yeah,
What the fuck is with
the
prorated
diet cola.
You can't go to the store. I can't get a gallon of milk and say CCA can get a half a gallon of milk to feed his family. Why are you prorating the rate of inflation? That's not fair to athletic carriers.
The clerks do not have. The clerks have a full cola applied at all steps. How the hell do they have anything in their contract better than ours? Anything?
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that was another thing we thought that we're going to get rid of, and they didn't. Real disappointment. This historic contract was just historically bad. That's all.
Getting back to what you said earlier, Corey, like what's the Postal Service doing? They're chin checking Brian, right? They're coming out and they're throwing a massive right hook to see how he reacts. And this reaction is the tentative agreement. The tentative agreement isn't looking very good. You got the thing that I can't understand for the life of me is the continued, process or theory that, like Mike's saying, a letter carries a letter carries a letter carrier. Why do we have a diet cola? Why do we have a 2-tier wage force? Why do we hire a career in some cities and not other cities? Why are we doing all these things and agreeing to them splitting letter carriers? We're guilty of that. The NALC is guilty of it. And that's why we need a change in leadership, because we need to change that mentality. First of all, we need somebody that's got a chin that can take the right hook, right? And then we need somebody that's got the right mentality.
Someone that comes back and throws one within, say, 19, 20 months,
Right. Then we need somebody with the right mentality just to hold that ground like we're talking about here. And I think that's what the average letter carrier is looking for in this instance, whether you're, talking them directly, whether you're seeing that on social media, the average letter carrier is now engaged. I think, Brian has made a massive mistake here because, they were kind of sleeping before and now they're not sleeping. And the reason they're not sleeping is I was taught, early on as a young steward, there's 2 things you don't mess with a letter carrier. That's their pay and their leave. And that doesn't matter if that's management, and that doesn't matter if that's the union. Either one of those parties mess with a letter carrier's pay or a letter carrier's leave, you're going to get a reaction. And that's exactly what he's getting here.
Yeah.
Hey, Corey, last time we voted down a contract was in 1978, and the Postal Service, they had agreed to cap the COLA, and the carriers voted that contract down. It went back to arbitration, and they took the cap off. So they won at arbitration after voting no on a ratification. And then the next thing they did was they got themselves a new president. I think history hopefully will repeat itself here.
It will definitely repeat itself if he doesn't step down before then. If he doesn't step down, I think he's so narcissistic that he will not. I think he should. because he's damaged us over and over again since he started with being a president, but he's definitely going to be voted out. I guarantee you that.
So to
I
play off,
guarantee you that.
to play off that, Corey, so last thing I'm gonna say is, so back home, we've been organizing, we've been getting people on board. We got people in Western PA, we got people in State College, we got people in Williamsport, we got people in Central Jersey, Southern Jersey, Philadelphia, Harrisburg, Reading, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton. We have a lot of people that are ready to go. They're ready to fight and they want to see change. So we're gonna keep
Yeah.
it. That's all we're doing. Word of mouth, social media, text, QR codes, everything out there. Anybody needs information put out, send it to us. We'll get it out. We're organizing. We're fighting. We're not gonna let this thing go.
Well, if y'all need anything from me, you know, man, I'm available. So anybody want to come on here and raise hell for my people, because like I said, man, I'm coming straight from a city letter carrier perspective. I'll be delivering mail tomorrow, and I got to go in there as a shop steward and tell my people, hey, my union completely fucked you over. My carriers have a lot of tenure. And so they've been asking a long, long time, what about this contract? What about this contract? Hang on. It's supposed to be historical, you know. And now I've got to go in there to them and tomorrow and say, well, we got 1.3. The big joke on the workroom floor was, everybody's historical, get ready for the 1.3. Well, now fuck, I gotta go in there and say it's just 1.3.
We got 1.3 in CCAs. I mean, who would have thunk it? If you'd have told us that, 20 months ago, that this is what we would end up with after tireless negotiations for 20 months, no one would have believed that.
And it rolls right into their, most of that executive council's battle, right, on opening bargaining, why they didn't want it. Because if
Oh,
the
yeah.
member would have found out early on in the procedure 1.3, you would have seen this demand, 18 months ago or whatever the deal was.
Exactly.
They would have opened up their mouth and got to the business agents and the resident officers and said, no way, this is not what we're doing. And again, that's just it. And that's part of the problem here, unfortunately, with Brian, is just the continued lies. It's going to be historic. It's not historic. Okay, we've had as much as 1.9, in 2006, 2011. Like Mike pointed out, we were going to the one tier. Well, we didn't go to one tier. We went down to table 2 instead of up to table 1. And that, to me, that's the most disheartening thing as a president myself. I should not be lying to my membership. My job is to get the membership the facts, let the facts determine how my members vote. And again, with the executive council, if this thing was a historic contract, if I'm the national president, I don't have to sell anything. That thing will sell itself. And, I wasn't in that room like Mike was, and Mike doesn't have to comment on this, but I've been talking to the guys about this. All these people that support Brian Renfro, if that thing was historic, they should have been getting up, running around that table, slapping high fives, saying, hey, man, you did a great job. I didn't hear Mr. Caref or anybody else tell me anybody got up running around the table, slapping high fives and telling anybody they did a good job. And that tells me something, even from his own supporters, that they might not, agree with this also. They might not publicly say it, but, based on the reaction of that council at that time, it sure seems that way.
Yeah, well, David, at the convention, Tyler gets up there with open bargaining, and here comes the executive council, down there raising, we don't need open bargaining. They're culpable. They're just as culpable as Renfro for this bullshit. Every person on that executive council that was going around to all these different rap sessions and all this saying, well, if we tell y'all what we're asking for, it could damage our position. If we tell y'all what we're asking for, it could hurt us in arbitration. If we tell you what we're asking for, Congress could get involved. All these parrots, all these talking heads, all these fucking idiots that came out and did that shit, they're just as culpable for this bullshit as our dumbass president is. That's how I feel.
Yep. All right, brother.
Anybody else got anything they want to say?
Yeah, every time I see you, this just pops into my head. I know you got a merchandise line, but you always kind of rock that flannel thing, and I just think you gotta have a Corey, yeah. You gotta have an official Corey Walton like flannel. That's what I think.
That-
Yeah,
it matches, it brings out the blue in my eyes.
100%, 100%.
Hey, guys, I love each and every one of you, man, and I appreciate every single one of y'all, what y'all do for my people, man. It's all about the city letter carrier. I was mad as fuck yesterday. I'll be mad as fuck tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Because, you know, if it wasn't for the city letter carrier, what good are we? You know, what good are you and you and you and you? You know, we're here for the city letter carrier. And the National Association of Letter Carriers has fucked us over. And so the carriers are angry. They're mad as fuck. And I don't blame them. But I love each and every one of you guys, man, for what y'all are doing for my people. I know who y'all are, and I know the passion y'all have for my people. I respect the shit out of you. And so everything's going to work out, man. I always tell carriers that are down in the dumps, hey, man, everything will work out. I promise you that. Everything will work out. So appreciate y'all spending an hour and a half with me. I'll get this up. Mike, I'll send you the video. And man, we'll run it back, I'm sure, within about a week or so. That sound
Sounds
good?
good, my brother.
All right, guys. Y'all have a good night, guys.
Good
You
seeing
go,
you.
buddy.
Take
Thanks,
care,
Corey.
Corey.
You go.
Okay.
We'll see y'all.